All right, and we are live. So thanks for tuning in. This is our first KBC Connects for 2016. I'm really excited. We did a few last year, but we've got a really great lineup for this year, and it just keeps getting better and better with our guest. I want to introduce Jacqueline. Jacqueline Twillie is a highly sought after thought leader in creating strategic career plans, combining a mix of leadership development and work ethic as the cornerstones of success. Jacqueline works with professionals to set career goals, developing networking skills, and creating an authentic leadership blueprint. She is the author of Navigating the Career Jungle, a guide for young professionals, which is actually an Amazon bestseller. Kudos to you. Jacqueline lives in Georgia. She loves to practice yoga and cook, and she's also a bit of a daredevil, so you can check that out on YouTube. Welcome, Jacqueline. How are you?
Thank you. I am excited to be joining you. This is like all I've been talking about all day, so yeah, I'm awesome. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thank you for participating. We really appreciate it. So I want to kind of kick it off with just you telling a bit more about what it is exactly you do. I actually mentioned you to someone earlier about the show, what I was going to have, and I referred to you as a negotiations expert, and they kind of looked at me like, what kind of negotiations? What are you talking about? So can you kind of tell us more in detail about what you do in some of your daily work routines?
Yes, great question. And I also get that question a lot, especially when I'm in the airport, like, what type of negotiations? So I focus on salary negotiations and job-related negotiations. And also a new addition to our business, we just started helping women who have a 9-to-5, like a full-time job, but they also have a side hustle. We began helping them negotiate too. So let me walk you through this a little bit. When a woman is about to accept a job offer, most of the time they don't negotiate. They're just so happy to have a job. And they find out about me through various ways. And I coach them through that process, making sure that they do the proper research so that when they have a conversation with the hiring manager or HR, they can go in and they can ask for additional things that are going to set them up for success in that role, as well as making sure that they're getting the appropriate salary for the work that they are going to be expected to deliver, not the salary based on the last job they had. And then I also work with women when it's performance review time. So a few months before performance review, maybe 3-6 months, I start working with women to build a case on the value that they're adding to the organization. And we're doing a lot of research about market rates, market value, and what other people are earning and what they're contributing to the organization. And I coach them through that process so that when they go in well before the performance review, they're letting their supervisor know that they're expecting something different, whether it's a title change or different resources or salary. And then the other component, which is what I just mentioned, I kept getting women coming to me saying, Jacqueline, do you help women negotiate business deals? And I was saying, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. Well, after about 10 no's, I'm like, I should be doing this. So I've developed a curriculum, a coaching process for women who have a side hustle to help them understand how to set their prices and how to stop giving stuff away for free or giving super deep discounts, and really having that conversation with their vendors and with their customers and anyone else they may be negotiating with, focusing on the value and not price so that they're earning what they're worth as an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. And I think that, I mean, we can all agree that women have a particularly difficult time in just kind of getting up the guts to even go and have that conversation, or even to discuss even the salary that they made last year. Forget about what they're worth or their value. It can just be a little bit of an intimidation to even have the conversations about money. Women don't particularly care to. So I know that it's much more complicated than probably one piece of advice, but what's probably the core advice you would give a woman that says, but I don't know, I just get in there and I get so like intimidated? Like, what would you say? Would you say preparedness is probably the key to not feeling intimidated?
Absolutely. You nailed it. It's being prepared. And that's where I see a lot of people miss the mark. They want to wing it. They want to shoot from the hip. But if you have written out, which is, we're going to talk about the toolkit a little bit later, it helps you write it out. But if you write out what you want to say, what you want to accomplish, you are very clear on your interests and their interests, meaning you're putting yourself in their shoes to see it from their point of view. That's all preparation. The better prepared you are, the more confident you'll be. And when somebody says something that kind of throws you off a little bit, you're like, well, actually, this is what it is because you have prepared. So I stress, prepare, prepare, prepare.
I think that's awesome. And also, I wanted to ask, what would you say is like probably the biggest hurdle of your job in dealing with people and dealing with emotions and maybe unexpected situations? What would you say is the hardest part of your business, your job?
The hardest part of my job is, and when I first started, I saw this more often than now. I would work with women and we would prepare and we would role play. But when it got time for the moment, they would just like, I'll take it. Like, you know, everything went out the window. That was the hardest part. It was so hard for me to figure out, how do I break through to women after all of this prep, after all of the research? How do we get over that hump and actually build the courage and to muster up and ask? So what I do is I coach women through the process, but then I also have them work with their male mentors. And it's super important that they have mentors who look like them and mentors who do not look like them. So I also help them figure out which male mentors are going to be helpful for them. But I have them practice with a man, because what happens is they tend to get comfortable with me after a certain amount of time. So what I'll do is I'll have them use my conference call line. I'm giving you insight into the business now. Use my conference call line with their male mentor, and they'll role play with that guy. I like to get them at least two guys over the phone, not at the same time, separate times. And then I listen to that with my client and I critique them live. So then what that allows them to do is that allows them to hear how, when they threw out the number, if their voice went high or if they got super quiet. And it pushes them out of their comfort zone. And when you hear how you sound, you're like, oh, I won't say that like that again. Now, I have to tell you, it's hard for people to listen to themselves, but that was really hard for us. And it's still, it's very emotional for people to hear themselves negotiating because they want to be perfect. So that's a really challenging part of my business because it is very emotional and it's really, really private. But I appreciate my clients allowing me to work with them through that process.
I think that's amazing. I think what you mentioned about part of the process is them sending their superiors some sort of notice that I am expecting something else. So then the expectation is set. So you're not going in there. They don't assume that you want to talk about anything else other than this. This is the agenda. I think that's amazing. And I want to come back to that. I want to get a little bit more background about what you did before you started your business and how is it different from what you do now?
Completely different. So the position that I held before starting this business was a federal contractor at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So I worked in the Global Immunization Division, and the role was a program operations assistant. So really what I was doing was managing $1.5 million monthly of charge card accounts. So it's similar, a charge card is similar to a credit card, but it's a little bit different. The nuances are a little different, but making sure that everyone in our division was using those cards within compliance. And also because when you're dealing with global health and going to remote parts of the world, not everyone has ATMs and not everyone has electricity. So part of my job was to make sure that I could get people enough money in advance if they weren't able to use a charge card, to make sure that they were able to carry a certain amount of money so that they could safely navigate the country. So that was one aspect. Then another aspect was pay. We have a lot of employees that I still say we, because they're like family after you work there for 3 years. But there are a lot of people who work for the CDC who are stationed in other countries and they travel. So there's some like special pay associated with that. And it's it's, oh my goodness, it's so tedious. That was probably like the hair pull out part of my job. So I also worked with that to make sure that people were getting the proper pay, and also maintaining some policy related travel guidelines. So making sure that when people travel, they got the appropriate allowances that they were entitled to outside of money. So that's what I did before this. And it's, I mean, completely different. I will say that I had to do some negotiating, but not in the traditional sense of where I'm negotiating a deal. Negotiations are really conversations that we have every single day. So a lot of that, I now realize I was practicing my negotiation skills, just dealing with my colleagues in different countries, people from different cultures, understanding how to communicate with them. So that would be the similarity. But other than that, that's a completely different world.
So what made you wake up and say, I want to launch this business?
Great question. So I didn't just wake up one day and say that. Before I took the position, prior to that role, I worked in IT staffing and recruiting, and it really wasn't my cup of tea, but I was trying to figure out what's my purpose in life. I had 3 other offers when I took that job, and it didn't turn out the way I expected. So I was a little bit bitter. I was having conversations with God, like, how did you let me take that job? And so when I took the position at the CDC, I knew that that position was going to be temporary. I didn't know how temporary, but I knew in my heart that I was taking that job to figure out my purpose in life. And throughout that process, I was very intentional about being curious and following my curiosity. So one of the things that kept happening was people kept asking me for career advice. One, because I had transitioned from working in retail as an assistant manager at Victoria's Secret as a graduate student when I was getting my MBA. And then I worked for a newspaper selling ads in Central Ohio. And then I moved to Atlanta. I worked in the advertising and publishing division of AT&T, which was the group that did the yellow pages, the like old phone book.
Mm-hmm.
And then IT staffing and recruiting. And now I'm in global health working at for the federal government. So people kept saying, 1, how do you transition and how have you been so successful in doing that? And 2, how, like from your last job, IT staffing and recruiting, you were working with hiring managers directly. So they kept asking all of these questions, and I was sending emails telling them, oh, I did this, you should do this. So one day I said, I'm just going to write a book. The next weekend, I was writing a book. And the book became a bestseller after it was self-published. Wow. 6 months later. And it was things like that where it was like, hold on, I never dreamed of being a writer. I'm not like the best writer. And I just wrote a best-selling book, and more things along those lines, such as being elected to the Vice President of Professional Development at the Center for Disease Control for their young professionals, being chosen to be the leader of Lavo League Atlanta, which was a huge honor, being elected to Vice President for Young Government Leaders Atlanta, being invited to be a mentor for the Black Career Women's Network. After all of these things, it's like, okay, I was praying for a sign. How many more signs do I need?
Right, and time to move.
And so it wasn't overnight, but it was a process of being very intentional and paying attention to the things I was curious with.
Gotcha. And so then my next question would be, how do you feel, what impact has digital/new media had on your business? Because everybody's pretty much impacted by it. We're all carrying around mini computers in our pockets and our purses every day. And so then that translates into access. And if you're in any type of business, no matter what industry it is, that plays a role in some way. What role has digital/new media played in your business?
Great question. So digital was very key. My bachelor's degree is in marketing. My MBA is in leadership. So when I decided to write the book, I knew I needed an audience to sell the book to, beyond the 20, 50 people that have been emailing me and talking to me. So I immediately set up a Facebook fan page, and I set up an Instagram account. I already had a large following on Twitter, like 5,000 plus. So as I was writing chunks of the book, what I would do, like to check myself to see if it was relevant, I would share large chunks. So if I wrote a paragraph, I would put a paragraph on Facebook. I was taking snippets and putting it in words and sharing it on Instagram. And it really started resonating with people. So in the very early parts, when I was just writing the book, digital played a large role in helping me test my ideas to see if it was something that people would connect to. Now, in terms of selling the book and helping it get to the bestseller list, email. I was emailing everybody. I had a full strategy that I created. I'd done a lot of research on what it took to be a bestseller on Amazon, and there's no 1 + 2 = 3 formula, but I started to connect dots of different people. So I kind of mixed all of those things in for myself, and all of that digital part of like sharing my content on social media, being featured in Parade magazine at the time, Career Builder, USA Today, the New York Times Daily. Being featured in all of those digital platforms really helped propel me to that best-selling spot, which actually gave my business credibility when I launched.
That's amazing, Jacqueline. You've done so many great things. That's so exciting. So earlier you mentioned briefly about the negotiations toolkit. What is that? I've seen little snippets on Instagram, but talk to me in more detail about what it is and how it's helping your clientele.
Yes, so I have been sharing bits and pieces online. So the negotiation toolkit is a negotiations workbook. It's really a prep workbook. It's about 60 pages where you can go in. I walk through really the first page, just breaking down why you should negotiate for millennial women and giving some research on that. One of the things that really stood out to me, Labor League did a study in 2015, and they found that only 21% of women negotiate their first offer out of school. So combine that with the research from Women Don't Ask, which is Sarah Lasser and Linda Babcock, who are like gurus when it comes to negotiation and gender negotiations. Women who don't negotiate their first job offer stand to lose $500,000 over the course of their career when they reach 61. So that's a lot of different factors in there because one, your employer matches 401k to a certain percent, and that's based on how much you earn, and then your retirement vehicles, how much you're saving towards retirement, as well as when you get promoted most of the time a percentage bump of what you currently earn in that role. So all of these things compound. So it starts off like that. Then the negotiation toolkit, it helps you evaluate your unique skills, because what you can't do is you can't go in there and say, my rent's going up, so y'all got to pay me 25%. You have to talk about the value that you're adding to the organization, to your team, to the company, and translate that into why they should compensate you differently. So we go through that section. Your education plays a part in that, your advanced skills, meaning any additional certifications, and your proven success on the job. And then I have in here mistakes to avoid. Okay, so this is big, don't lie. People ask me often, so when is it okay to lie? It's never okay to lie. So let's make sure we have that out and clear. But listening more than you speak. I give some strategy about how to do that. What if you're in a negotiation and you get stuck? Like, let's say you're talking to your supervisor and you plan what you want to say, but you're getting all flustered. I tell people, take in a bottle of water, okay? And this is a tip in the toolkit too. You get a cup of water and say, oh, you know what? I've been drinking a lot of water. Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom. That way, as you go to the restroom, you can regroup and get yourself back together. So in here, I give some sample scripts of how to talk about relocation, how to talk about the promotion, how to talk about the raise, how to answer the question, what do you make now, when you're talking to an HR person or a recruiter at the very early stages. So the toolkit really helps you prepare for a variety of negotiations. So in that, you have your workbook, then you have your checklist that you can reuse. And I have two sides to that. And then we have some confidence boosting cards, because one of the reasons why women don't negotiate is because of fear. So before you go into your negotiation or as you're prepping, you have these in your car, and you can flip through some of the reminders from the toolkit and you take notes on the back, put your own notes on there. So that's what the negotiation toolkit is. Now, the couple of people who got the advanced copy, this is what they've said about it. They said it helped them clarify what they want to say and how they're going to say it, and how to get back to what they want to say when the conversation goes off on a tangent. And I think that's super important. And then also just being more confident in their ability to know that, hey, the employer, just as I'm appreciative for having this job, the employer is appreciative of me because I am helping them reach the company goals. So that's one of the ways the negotiation toolkit is really helping my clients. I can't wait to hear more stories of success from it.
I think that's awesome. I think, also kind of reminding your clients to hold on to that confidence. Don't forget that you are a value as well. I think it's very, very common for people to just sort of, especially women, to just take the road like, well, I don't want to make waves. I better not, be too combative or ask for too much, because then there's somebody right behind me who'll take the job. I think when you kind of put that as your front, they pick up on that. And just as you have strategized and prepared and planned, so have they, or lack thereof. And so they have, more than likely they have. And so when you kind of put that face forward, like you're unsure and you're not aware of your value, it's like they sniff it out and they know, oh, I'm going to offer, bare minimum, and she's likely going to take it. So that's fine. I think when you come in with the aura that you are confident, it does show, and it'll at least make them pause and say, uh-oh, like somebody might give me a run for my money. I better pay attention. So I think that's amazing. I definitely would want to talk with you more on that for sure.
Yeah, so let me just piggyback on that. You just said something super important. The employer says, uh-oh. They say uh-oh in a good or bad way. If you go in there like, I want my money now, you owe me some money, they're going to shut you down and you might be looking for another job. However, the clients that I've worked with who were initially really nervous, when they went in and they presented the case of, I've been working on this project. I noticed that I saved the company $20,000 on this. I got this email from the VP, and I'm really, excited that I'm contributing to the bottom line of the organization. When you have that type of conversation, so as a result, I know I've been taking on some additional responsibilities. I think the work that I'm doing is more in line with this title. And with that title, I like to be compensated with what other people earn. And I've done some research. I've gone to payscale.com, and I know that in Atlanta for this title, people are earning this. When you have that conversation, and that's what I teach my clients to do. Guess what? They go, the employers, sometimes it takes them months to find the money, which is why I say you don't want to have this conversation at performance review time. You want to have it before that budget is set. They almost always come back and say, you know what, you are a leader in our organization, and I appreciate you negotiating on your behalf. They have so much respect for the women who step up. And guess what? When they know that you're going to go to bat for yourself, they know for a fact that you're going to go to bat for their organization. And that's what people want. They want those type of leaders working for them.
That's an amazing point. And I think that kind of redirects the focus so that women can get out of that, or anybody can get out of that fear-based approach and look at it as, I'm coming in, I'm simply presenting the facts. I'm simply stating what my contribution is. I love being a part of this team. Here is what I find to be more comparable in terms of title and that type of thing. That's not unfair. That's not absurd. It's not ridiculous. It's not combative. It's not disrespectful. It's appropriate. And I think it's fair. And I'm so glad that you're doing this, because I think more women need to be empowered to have these conversations on their behalf with anything, negotiating a deal on a car, negotiating for a house, anything. They just need to change their perspective so that it's not like, oh, like I don't want to rock the boat. You know what I mean? And I've been there. I've done it. I'm not really ashamed to say, but in my past, I have done it. I've been timid and felt regret immediately once the deal was done. Like, I know for a fact that I'm worth more than this. And then you find yourself stuck, and then resentment builds. And then it's just kind of this vicious cycle. And you're the one who loses, not them. They'll find somebody else. You lose. So I'm really excited about what you're doing. So how can people get the negotiations toolkit?
So you can get the negotiation toolkit from my website, JacquelineTwillie.com. It's also in my bio on Twitter. The link is on Twitter. The short URL is gum.co/ERAL. And the discount for tonight for anyone who is watching this live and for the next 24 hours, you can get 10% off of the toolkit. Just use the code WL16. So WL16, that'll give you 10% off. So that's how you get your hands on that toolkit. Now, this is the thing with the toolkit. I have a lot of talks on YouTube and on the Navigating the Career Jungle podcast. You're going to get the most impact if you use this workbook in conjunction with a lot of the material that I've shared, because you're going to get a lot of context and the back work behind my thought process of how I negotiate and how I approach negotiations from a win-win perspective. So to get the most impact, you do those two with the book, and those resources are free.
That's very exciting. I'm so glad. Thank you. Now, we have this lovely little gem from a young Jacqueline. Now, how old are you here?
I am in elementary school, like probably 5th or 6th grade. So whatever age you are at 5th or 6th grade, that's me as a little cheerleader for Alton Rams in Slidell, Louisiana.
And for this point in your life, what would you tell this girl? What would you tell her? What advice would you give her?
I would tell her exactly what my principal told me at that age. Right after I took that picture, the next year I went to junior high school, and it was not diverse at all, just a handful of Black kids. And I experienced a lot of racial challenges. And so my mom and we went to talk to my elementary school principal, who had been a mentor to my mom when my mom was in high school. And she said, you have to pick your battles. You can't win all battles. Some things just aren't as important as others. And that has stuck with me, believe it or not. So if I had to go back and tell myself something, I would say that, because we're emotional, and sometimes you want to pop off and you want to clap back, and you want to get people right. And I have always remembered from that age to pick my battles. Not every battle is worth fighting. So that principal's name is Gwen Wade, and she is phenomenal. She actually really supported my book, and last year I was introduced to the mayor of my hometown through her facilitation, and I had a book signing at a nice art gallery at her facilitation. Mm-hmm. So to talk about the power of mentors and staying connected with people who believe in you from a very early age.
That's so exciting. That's really awesome, Jacqueline. I really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this KBC Connects. The purpose of this is to shed the light on different industries and kind of what effects digital has had, because that's my business, and I'm always curious on how it affects other people's business, but also just kind of opening up this conversation about something that affects everyone, no matter what business they're in. So many women have this issue. So I'm really excited to hear more testimonies about the negotiations toolkit. And you and I had to schedule a little offline one-on-one lunch to kind of chat it up. So I thank you for your time. And of course, this is going to be on the Kelley Brand Communications YouTube page. And we'll be promoting it heavily, especially since you've been so gracious in offering the 10% discount for the next 24 hours. So if you're viewing now, again, it's 24 hours from 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time on April 21st to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time on April 22nd. So be sure to get it. I'm certain you won't be disappointed. And we thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, we'll have to get something on the calendar for lunch ASAP.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.